All right, so you know how this works, right? You send us a whole stack of stuff. We go through it all and pull out the really interesting bits. This time around, well, it's something called doubt therapy. And, yeah, how it tries to tackle, like, the core of OCD, obsessive-compulsive disorder.
And the thing is, with the stuff you sent over, the idea that doubt isn't just like a symptom, but like the foundation of OCD, it's kind of wild, actually. There's like a whole 10-step program based on just that.
Yeah, that's what really caught our eye, too. So where we're going with this is getting a grip on how big a deal doubt is in OCD, at least how this therapy sees it. And I guess, like, the even bigger thing is how is this OCD doubt different from, just regular doubt that we all have?
Right, right. So doubt therapy starts with this. OCD. It begins with doubt. That's step one, like the foundation of the whole thing.
So hold on, I'm trying to get this straight. The therapy saying all that anxiety, all the compulsions people do, even things they avoid, it's all because of doubt. Like, it all comes from that.
Exactly. It's like a chain reaction, starting with doubt. And, the material you sent actually maps out how OCD thinking goes. Starts with a prompt, could be a thought, something you see, something that just happens.
Okay, yeah. And then what's next?
Then comes what they call obsessional doubt, that feeling like, hang on, maybe something's not right here, that uncertainty.
Got it. So then what?
Well, your mind starts going down all these paths, like what if things aren't okay? What could go wrong? That's when the anxiety kicks in, and it can get pretty intense.
Yeah, I can see how that would build up fast.
Right, and that anxiety, that's what makes you do something, anything, to make it stop, to convince yourself things are fine. So you check the lock again or wash your hands again, you know the drill.
But isn't that, like, making it worse? I feel like I've heard that.
That's the messed up part, yeah. Your sources point this out. Those compulsions, they might calm you down for a second, but they're basically feeding the doubt. It becomes this loop that keeps OCD going.
Because you're basically telling your brain that there was something to worry about, or you wouldn't be checking so much.
Right, exactly. And you sent some good examples of this, like just touching a doorknob. Maybe that leads to, oh crap, are my hands dirty now? Then you're worried about getting sick. The anxiety comes and you gotta wash your hands. Or locking your car door. You think, did I really lock it? Then you're worried about it getting stolen. You get anxious and you have to check it like 5 times.
I feel like I've been there, yeah. It's like all these scenarios, whether it's germs or whatever, it always starts with that what if feeling.
Yeah, and the examples go deeper than that. Like, what about those intrusive thoughts? The ones about hurting kids, for example. The thought itself is like the trigger,
Yeah.
right? Then the doubt comes in. What if I could actually do that?
Oh, man, that's heavy.
Right. Then comes the fear of what that would mean, the guilt, and suddenly you're doing all this stuff to make sure you don't actually hurt anyone.
Makes sense, I guess. But it's not always about, like, harm, right? What about just,
Yeah.
like, arranging things perfectly or needing things to be just so?
Totally. That can be OCD too. Like you're arranging stuff and the thought is this really in the right spot? It feels wrong, so you have to fix it. Or after talking to someone, you're like, did I say something stupid? And you can't let it go.
Yeah. I overthink conversations sometimes.
We all do, but with OCD, it's like you can't stop. Or even something like throwing out old newspapers. You think, what if there was something important in there? And you end up keeping everything.
Oh, yeah, my friend does that. Keeps everything. Okay, so the thing that keeps coming up in all these, like, the sources make clear is that maybe that doubt is always at the beginning. It's the spark.
That's it. But here's the really important part. The thing doubt therapy is all about. OCD doubt, it's not the same as the normal kind of doubt everyone has.
Oh, right. Yeah, like regular doubt, it's usually about something real. Like, say you hear a loud bang. You doubt whether it's, just the wind or if something fell over or something worse happened.
Right, so what do? You go check. Right, you look out the window, you go see what made the noise, you use your senses to figure it out.
Exactly. And then once you know, like, oh, it's just a branch that fell down or whatever, the doubt's gone. Your senses told you what was up, so you believe them.
That's normal doubt. It gets resolved by information. But OCD doubt, it doesn't work that way. Instead of going towards what's real, what your senses tell you, it pulls you away from that.
So it's not about finding an answer, it's just more doubt.
Pretty much. And even if you do the compulsions, you don't get that feeling of certainty that normally comes from figuring things out. Your sources say it's because OCD doubt, it isn't based on what's actually happening now.
Okay, so what is it based on then?
They call it a subjective story. Basically, it's something your mind makes up that doesn't really match up with reality.
Subjective story. That makes sense. And a lot of times, It's like you said, yes, but maybe. It's like your senses are telling you one thing, but your brain throws in this what if to mess with you.
Totally. Like, you see a door, it's closed. But the OCD story is like, yeah, BAT, maybe there's something stuck in the lock you can't see, so it's not really closed. Didn't you hear about that guy who got robbed even though he thought his door was locked?
Oh, man, I'd be checking that door like 100 times.
Right. Or your hands, they look clean, but the story goes, yeah, but QT, maybe there were germs on that thing you just touched, and you can't see germs, and maybe they got on your skin, and what if they're getting in?
Okay, stop. I'm already reaching for the hand sanitizer.
See? The story just takes over, even though your eyes tell you it's fine. It's like the story makes you believe something's wrong, even when there's no proof, and then you got to do something about it.
So it's not just doubt. It's doubt that makes you act.
Yeah, and the thing is, a lot of times the doubt comes after your senses already told you everything was fine. Like you already saw the door was closed, but then the story comes in and you can't trust your own eyes anymore.
Okay, now that's just messed up.
Right. There's this comparison in the sources. With normal doubt, you're not sure about something, so you use your senses to figure it out. But with OCD doubt, you know what your senses tell you, but then the doubt comes anyway and you can't believe them.
So you can't win either way. It seems like the stuff you do to make it stop, the compulsions, don't actually help either. They just feed the story.
Totally. It's like you're going further and further away from what's real, deeper into this OCD world that the stories create.
Okay, so these OCD stories can feel super real, but the therapy says they're basically made up, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no logic to them.
Exactly. And they use this great analogy, like most of us aren't scared of like a bear suddenly showing up right now because we just don't believe there's a bear here. How much you believe the story is how anxious you get about it. So with OCD, if you didn't believe the story, you wouldn't be anxious.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Right. So doubt therapy tries to help you see how fake these stories really are. It's like OCD is a magician doing tricks to make you believe something that isn't true.
So like we got to figure out how the magic trick works so we don't get fooled.
That's a good way to put it. The therapy looks at what they call reasoning devices. Those are the things that make you believe the stories, even though they're not logical.
And like how is that different from regular thinking?
Well, think about crossing the street. You use your senses, right? You look for cars, you listen. You don't start thinking about like stories you heard about accidents or something you saw in a movie. You use what's happening now.
Right, you're in the moment, focused.
Exactly. But OCD, it takes you out of the moment. Your sources call it a bubble of stories and anxiety.
I can see how that would be exhausting.
Right. And I know what you're thinking. But doing the compulsions does feel good, even for a little bit. The therapy says that's because you're giving in to the OCD.
So like you're making the demanding voice shut up for a minute, but it's not really fixing anything.
Exactly. It makes you feel less anxious for a bit, but it doesn't actually make you safer. In fact, it probably makes you less safe.
Less safe. How?
Because you're putting all of this energy into something that doesn't actually matter. And all that effort makes you feel less sure of yourself, less trusting of your own judgment.
So you end up more stressed in the long run, even though you're trying to feel less stressed.
Exactly. That's why people with OCD start avoiding stuff. It all gets too much.
That makes a lot of sense. So if the problem is doubt, the doubt's got to be the first thing we figure out, right?
Right.
How do we even know what the doubt is?
That's the next step, yeah. Doubt therapy says you got to find that core doubt. Trace it back from the ritual you do, the bad thing you're trying to stop. It's like rewinding the whole OCD thing to see where it starts.
Okay, I think I'm following. But how do you actually do that?
Your sources suggest making a list, of all the compulsions you do, both things you do and the things you think. Then you figure out, for each one, how easy is it to not do it.
Okay, and then what?
You pick one that happens a lot, that you do all the time, and you ask yourself, if I keep doing this, what am I not sure about? Whatever that is, that uncertainty, that's probably your main doubt.
So if you're always washing your hands, the doubt could be, like, maybe they're not really clean.
Right. And if you keep checking the stove, the doubt might be, what if I left it on? And that doubt is what makes you anxious.
Right.
And then you start thinking about what could happen, like with the hands. You start thinking about germs and getting sick and maybe making other people sick.
Right. It all spirals from there.
Exactly. They even suggest using a worksheet to like rate how much you believe the doubt might be true. And they say start with a doubt that happens a lot, but that you don't totally believe.
Makes sense to start small, yeah.
Right. But they also say that finding the doubt can be tricky sometimes. Like some people might say, well, there isn't a doubt. I just do it to feel better.
Oh, yeah, I can see someone saying that. What do you do then?
The therapy says, ask yourself, why that specific thing? Why not something else? What's it actually fixing? The answer might tell you what the hidden doubt is.
Hmm, okay. What about if it's like a habit? Like you do it without even thinking?
For that, they say, to think back to when you first started doing it, what was going on then? What were you worried about? Even the things we do without thinking usually had a reason at some point.
Interesting. But what if someone's like, nope, no doubt here, I'm completely sure?
The sources actually challenge that. They say, are you really sure? Or is there a tiny bit of maybe in there? Because if you're really sure about something, you don't usually have to keep checking it.
So, like, the fact that you're checking means there's got to be some doubt, even if you don't want to admit it.
Exactly. They point out that doubt means there's something you already think is true that you're now questioning. And funnily enough, the more you try to be sure, the more you doubt.
Oh, man, that is messed up. It's like OCD is a trap.
In a way, yeah. So the main thing is, if you look at what you do, the rituals and what you're scared of, that can help you find the doubt that's causing it all.
All right, so we found the doubt. Now what?
The next big question is, where did that doubt come from in the first place? Is it from out there in the real world, or is it from in here in your head?
So, like, is it based on something you saw or heard, or is it just, like, your own idea?
Right. Your sources say there's only two options. It's either justified by something real, something you can see, hear, feel, smell right now, or information from a reliable source that matters to the situation. Or it's self-created. It comes from your own thoughts, hunches, those subjective stories.
Okay, give me some examples.
Sure. So, like, you lock your front door and you hear something weird right after. That's a reason to be a little doubtful, right? Or you're on the phone, there's a lot of static, you can't hear clearly. That's a good reason to doubt what the other person said. Those doubts are because of something that's happening right now.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What about a doubt that's not based on something real?
Okay, so you lock the door, you know it's locked, you felt it, you heard it, but then a few minutes later, you doubt it. Or you have a clear conversation with someone, then later you start doubting if you heard them right. Those doubts come from inside you, not from anything real that happened.
So it's like those yes but maybe stories again.
Exactly. Now, someone might say, but what if it is true, even if I made it up? And yeah, anything's possible. But the point is, the therapy says, just figure out where the doubt came from at that moment.
So, like, is it a reasonable reaction to something real, or is it coming from inside your head?
Right. They also say, don't mix up the thing that triggers the doubt with the doubt itself. Like seeing a doorknob, that's real. That's the trigger. But if it looks clean and you still doubt it's clean, that doubt's coming from you, not the doorknob.
So most of the time in OCD, the doubt comes after you already know everything's fine. It's not based on anything real.
That's the main thing. It's a doubt you create yourself.
Okay, so if the doubt comes from inside us, what are the reasons we give ourselves for doubting? Even when everything seems fine.
So doubt therapy says, since OCD doubt is made up, we have to look at the reasons we use to justify it. It's like, what's the story we tell ourselves?
Okay, so what do your senses tell you about the situation before the doubt creeps in? Like if you didn't have OCD, what would you see, hear, feel?
Right, because usually your senses and common sense will tell you that everything's actually okay. The door is locked, your hands are clean, there's no real problem.
But then the doubt just pops up anyway.
Right. And the sources use this interesting thought experiment. Imagine you have to bet all your money on whether the doubt is true or false. Would you bet on the doubt or on what your senses tell you?
Interesting. I guess if I had to bet everything, I'd probably go with what my senses are telling me.
Exactly. Most people with OCD would probably say the same thing. It shows that deep down you do know what's real, but the OCD just makes you doubt it.
So it's like the therapy saying, you already know the truth, but you need to trust yourself more.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. So the next step is to let the OCD talk. Like, what reasons does it give you for doubting, even when everything seems fine?
Let me guess. It's probably those yes, but maybe stories again.
A lot of times, yeah. And your sources say these OCD justifications, they often fall into a few categories, like maybe relying on something you heard from someone else, or taking facts out of context, or imagining the worst case scenario. Maybe you're making assumptions that aren't true, or trying to control things that are impossible to control. The key is, none of these reasons are based on what's happening right now.
It's all in your head, not in the real world.
Exactly. They give this example of John's story. He doubts if he locked his front door, even though he knows he did. But his reasons are, like, he remembers a door swinging open at some other place years ago. He worries that he's not good with locks in general. And his friend told him a story about his garage door messing up.
Yeah.
None of that has to do with his front door now.
Yeah, none of those are real reasons to doubt his door right now. It's like his brain is bringing up random stuff just to make him worry.
Right. The therapy says that's different from real reasons to be careful. You know, reasons that are based on what you've experienced yourself or information that's relevant now.
So, like, if John knew that this specific lock on his door was old and had gotten stuck before, that would be a good reason to double check, right? Because it's about this lock right now.
Exactly. That's based on his actual experience.
Huh.
But John's reasons, they're all about other times, other places, other people, not about this moment.
So it's all just stories, not facts.
Right. And they have this exercise where they list a bunch of reasons why the door might not be locked and ask which one's actually based on something real in that moment. The right answer, like we said, is the one about the specific lock having problems before.
Okay, I get it. So how do we figure out our own OCD stories?
The therapy says write down your story behind the obsession, start with maybe, and just list all the reasons why you doubt, even when your senses tell you everything's fine.
What if someone can't think of any reasons? Like, what if they say, I don't know, it just seems like I should doubt?
The therapy gives some prompts for that, like, why do you feel like you should doubt in this case, even if your senses say otherwise?
Okay, so it's pushing you to be specific, to really think about why you're doubting. What about if they say, I don't know, it just feels right to doubt?
Then the prompt is, why does it feel right to doubt in this situation? What's the reason behind that feeling?
Interesting. What about if someone says, well, it could be dangerous, so it's safer to doubt?
The therapy asks, how would it be dangerous not to doubt if your senses tell you everything's okay? It's making you question that automatic doubt equals safety thing.
Right, because sometimes doubt can actually make things less safe.
Exactly. And then for the people who say, well, it's a possibility, it could happen, like worrying about the ceiling collapsing or something, the prompt is, who or what is saying it's a real possibility right now? It's bringing you back to the present moment.
Okay, that's good. So we have our story, our reasons for doubting. What do we do with it?
The therapy says, now try to replace each doubt-based idea with something realistic, something based on what you can see and hear and feel right now.
So, like, instead of saying, maybe I didn't turn off the stove even though the dial is on-off, you'd say, I checked the dial and it's on-off.
Right. You're basically creating a new story, one that's based on what's actually happening, not on what ifs.
So the goal isn't to just, like, pretend everything's perfect. It's about realizing that the OCD story is just one way of seeing things, and it might not be the right way.
Exactly. By making this new story, one based on your senses and common sense, you can see that the OCD story is just a story. It doesn't have to control you.
That's a good way to put it. So we figured out our doubt, we've seen that it's not based on reality, and we've started making a new story. What's next?
Now we got to get even more specific. We got to look at the OCD stories and see what's wrong with the logic, the reasoning.
Because it's not just that they're based on nothing. There are actual flaws in the way they're put together.
Exactly. Your sources say these stories have all these reasoning errors that make them fall apart.
Give me an example.
They talk about Marlene's story. Marlene's afraid to touch a pole on the subway, even if it looks clean. Her story is, you don't know who touched it before, some people don't wash their hands, germs are invisible and can live on surfaces, and she imagines them crawling on her hand.
Okay, but I mean, germs are real, right?
Right, but the therapy asks these questions to break down her logic. Is the pole actually dirty? No. Is she assuming things about other people, like that they don't wash their hands? Yes. Is she bringing in random facts that don't matter to the situation, like just that germs exist? Yes. Is she using her imagination to make it scarier? Definitely.
So it's like she's taking little bits of truth and twisting them to fit her fear.
Exactly. The main point is her reasons have nothing to do with that pole at that moment. She's not going by what her senses are telling her about the pole itself.
So her fear isn't really about the pole, it's about the story she's telling herself.
Right. And the therapy also points out how her thinking's all messed up. She's more worried about breathing in germs than touching them, even though she's holding the pole. And she's forgetting that skin actually protects you from germs. It's like she's making up this whole scary movie in her head.
Yeah, that's not logical at all.
Nope. So the question is, should Marlene really be that scared based on her story? The therapy says no way, because her thinking is all wrong.
Okay, so how do we apply this to our own OCD stories?
That's the next step. Take the story you wrote down, the one about your own obsession, and look at it critically. Are you making assumptions about people or situations without any evidence? Are you bringing in random facts that don't actually matter? Are you letting your imagination run wild?
So basically, fact-check your own OCD story.
Exactly. Are the reasons you're giving yourself actually connected to the here and now, or are they about other times, other places? And are you basing your conclusions on real evidence or on what ifs?
And by doing that, you start to see how shaky the whole foundation of your doubt really is.
Exactly. It's like you're shining a light on all the tricks your OCD uses to try and convince you.
It's about realizing that as soon as the OCD story starts, you've left logic behind, and you're in this world of fear and what-ifs that isn't based on anything real.
And here's another interesting thing your sources point out. The kind of thinking we use with OCD, it's often very specific to the OCD. We don't think like that in other areas of our lives.
What do you mean?
Well, think about crossing the street. You use your senses to decide if it's safe, right? You look for cars, you listen. You don't start thinking about, like, news stories about accidents or something you saw in a movie.
Right, you're focused on what's happening right in front of you. You trust your senses.
Exactly. But what if we tried to make you doubt that? What if you suddenly heard a bunch of stories about cars coming out of nowhere or saw a scary scene in a movie about someone getting hit?
Oh man, I bet that would make me more hesitant to cross the street, even if I knew it was probably fine.
See, that's how powerful stories are. You can create doubt and anxiety with a story, even if nothing's actually changed in reality.
So it's not the situation itself, it's how we think about it.
Exactly. And that's where changing the story is so important in OCD, because the story isn't the same as reality.
That makes a lot of sense. But if the OCD doubt is all in our heads, why does it feel so real, so urgent?
That's a good question. The therapy says that the doubt starts to feel real because of what we do about it. The compulsions, the things we avoid, the constant checking.
So like, by trying to fix the doubt, we actually make it stronger.
Exactly. Every time you do something to stop the bad thing from happening, you're basically saying that the doubt is real and important. And then if you do the thing and you feel better, even for a little bit, it just proves to your brain that there was something to worry about.
That's so frustrating. So it's like we're trapped in this cycle of doubt and compulsions.
Yeah, it can feel that way. And avoiding stuff makes it worse, too, because you never get to see that the thing you're scared of probably wouldn't have happened anyway. And being hypervigilant, always on the lookout for danger, just keeps the fear alive.
Right, you're constantly feeding the anxiety.
Exactly. And your sources also talk about testing behaviors. This is where you try to prove your fears are true. Like, if you're worried about looking stupid, you might keep looking around to see if people are staring at you.
Oh yeah, I do that sometimes.
Or you might deliberately think about the thing you're scared of, like to see if you can think it, which just makes it feel more real.
That's like fighting fire, but with anxiety, it's just going to get bigger.
Exactly. So the therapy says, pay attention to all the things you do because of the doubt, not just the rituals. Notice what you avoid, what you're always on the lookout for, and how you try to test your fears. Those are all making the OCD feel more real.
Okay, so we spent a lot of time talking about the problem, but what's the solution? How do we actually stop doing all this stuff?
So now that we understand how OCD doubt works, the therapy focuses on learning to trust your senses again, like how you would in a normal situation without OCD.
So just like see what you see, hear what you hear, and believe it.
Basically, yeah. It's about letting your senses do their job naturally without all the overthinking and checking. And they know that at first, if you stop doing all the compulsions and stuff, you're going to feel weird, maybe even scared.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be really hard.
Totally. But they say that as you get used to trusting your senses again, that fear will go away and you'll feel more confident.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do you actually do that, trust your senses, when your brain is screaming at you that something's wrong?
Well, the important thing is that trusting your senses is something you already know how to do. It's not some special skill you have to learn. In fact, trying too hard to analyze everything can actually make you less trusting.
So it's about doing less, not more.
Exactly. The therapy says make a list of all the situations that trigger your OCD. And then they define reality sensing as basically just paying attention to what you need to do in that moment and using your senses normally, like you would for any other task.
So like if you normally spend an hour in the shower because
Yeah.
you're afraid of germs, now you just shower until you feel clean like a normal person.
Exactly. Or if you lock your door and it feels locked, you just move on with your day and don't let the doubts take over.
So it's about acting as if you don't have OCD.
In a way, yeah. It's about retraining your brain to trust itself. And the goal is to keep practicing this until you feel confident in those situations, like at least 80% confident.
I can see how that would take time and effort, but it seems worth it.
Definitely. So we've looked at how to challenge doubts and trust our senses, but the therapy goes even deeper, asking why you might have your specific OCD in the first place.
Ooh, that's a good question. Why me? Why this obsession?
Right, so they talk about something called a vulnerable self-theme. This is basically an idea about yourself, maybe you're aware of it, maybe not, that makes you more likely to have certain obsessions and fears.
So like an insecurity or a weakness that the OCD latches onto.
Exactly. And the problem is, the OCD uses that vulnerability to make you think you could become someone you're not, or do something you would never do. And it uses all those same messed up reasoning tricks to make it feel real.
Ugh, so it's like a double whammy. You have the doubt and you have this fear about yourself.
Right. But the therapy is very clear. Your authentic self, who you really are, is shown by what you actually do, how you think, how you behave in your life, not by what ifs and fears.
So like if you've never hurt anyone in your life, it's probably not something you need to worry about doing.
Exactly. So they say look at your doubts and see what they say about who you're afraid of becoming. Like if your doubt is, what if I hurt someone? The feared self might be, what if I'm a violent person?
Okay, and then what?
Then you have to look at your actual life and see if there's any evidence that.